All right, guys, welcome in. This is another episode of Get to Know Your League Mates, and this week we have Colter, as I'm sure you could tell by the episode. We, I'm, It's my first time doing these things, so if I stumble or something along the way, I apologize. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. Colter has been a longtime internet friend of mine. We've met in real life a couple of times, and I'm glad he's been a long-term thing in the league. How you doing, Colter?
Doing all right. Sitting here watching football, talking to you. So yeah, chill.
Nice. All right. So we can get this thing started. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself? Where do you live? Where are you from? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I live in Billings, Montana, which I know most of the league is probably not familiar with Montana and our geography. I'm about hour and a half north of Yellowstone National Park. Montana's a pretty big state. So like I can actually drive the same distance as it would be from my house to Denver. If I go west, I can still be in Montana. And yeah, drive that same distance as it would be from my house to Denver, like I said. So yeah, Billings is the biggest city in Montana. I grew up here. I've lived here almost all my life. I spent a year in Minnesota for school, and then I came back here. Minnesota was cold, and you think you grow up in Montana and you think like cold, and then you go out to the flat of Minnesota, and it's a whole nother thing. And I graduated from college 2013. I have degrees in political science, history, education, and so I'm a teacher. I teach high school here in Billings at a school called Skyview. We got about 1,700 students. I teach social
Do you
studies.
teach? Do
Yeah.
you like teach like all grades, or do you teach just like one grade?
So I can teach, I'm technically certified by the state of Montana to teach 5 through 12, but I will be damned if I ever teach anything below 10. There's no way. I mostly teach 10 and 11 right now. I've taught seniors in the past. I wanted to teach seniors kind of coming up. Like I really wanted to teach American government, and I've taught it a few times now, and seniors are just no fun. Sophomores and juniors are kind of where it's at, but I do have a class that I'm working on getting approved right now to hopefully be an elective for seniors here within the next couple of years. So that'd be pretty cool. And then stuff I like to do for fun. I watch football, I hang out with my dog, I read, I have a huge record collection, so I do a lot of stuff with that. Anything to do with music is pretty cool to me. At one point, I was pretty into taking photos. Yeah, I don't know. Just
Nice.
life's kind of in flux for me right now, so I'm pretty open to a lot of different things. But yeah,
Hell yeah. Did you always want to be a teacher?
pretty much since sixth grade. Yeah, I mean, my dad was a teacher, so he was, big. I guess big inspiration for me to get into it. And when I hit sixth grade, I just kind of noticed that my teachers seemed to enjoy their jobs, and I know my dad got a lot of reward out of it. So yeah, I just from then when I realized I wasn't going to make the NFL, it was or I wasn't going to be a NASCAR driver, it was a situation where, okay, I guess I better start looking at more realistic stuff. And the only other thing I really ever thought about doing was something to do with like sportscasting or sports journalism in some way, shape, or form. And I actually interned. They had us do like this little thing in high school where we had to go and intern for like a day or two. And that's actually what I did is I went to the local news station and hung out with the newscasters for a day. So yeah, that
Hell yeah.
was yeah, that was interesting, but ultimately decided to go with the teaching. So
Speaking of, you went back to saying that NASCAR driver. I remember being very jealous of a particular vehicle you happened to own at one point in your life.
yeah,
Yeah, you Dodge SRT4, is that correct?
yeah, I had a black one for a long time, and then I traded it in like 2013 or 2014. That car got wrecked. I have another one now. It's a red one. It's an '04. It's got all sorts of stuff done to it. I didn't do any of it, but Yeah, I've got my main vehicle, and then I've also got a 1984 Dodge Rampage. So yeah, the Rampage is like if you don't know what a Dodge Rampage is, Google it. It's sort of like a vehicular hermaphrodite. It's like a car truck type situation, like a smaller El Camino. It's it's awesome. I love that little thing. And SRT is just a lot of fun to drive. So I don't I can really only drive it about 6 months of the year around here, although it has snowed, I think, precisely twice here so far this year. So I have a little bit more call for it, but I also live literally a mile from my job, so I don't do a lot of commuting as it is. But yeah,
Yeah.
they're both great little cars, and then my main vehicle's just my main vehicle. So
Oh yeah. What's your okay? So next question is, tell us about your fantasy background and experience. I want to preface this with, I knew Colter played fantasy prior to our league, and I figured I'd reach out to him. And thankfully, he also had a friend to come into the league for us to cover another spot. So appreciate that on you guys, especially considering it was a weird situation to kind of take over a team that was in a weird spot. So
yeah, I mean, luckily we've known each other for like 15 years now at least. And
crazy.
I know it's weird to think about. Yeah, I've probably been playing fantasy since I was 16, so probably like 20 years now, just about, maybe a little younger than that even. First leagues were, on Yahoo. That's actually probably where I played the majority of my fantasy football on Yahoo. I'd never even heard of Sleeper until you invited me to this league. And, when you asked if I had anybody else, I figured I'd ask my friend Matt. And Matt and I have been friends since like second grade. I was the best man in his wedding, and he was in my wedding too. And yeah, we watch football together every Sunday. And yeah, just it was the concept of dynasty was something that I wasn't familiar with, and figured figured that sounded like a lot of fun because that's what I like to do when I'm playing, like Madden, even though I don't really buy Madden anymore, or like NCAA football. Love doing that stuff, building teams and you know trying to take make something from nothing. So
What's
that
your most recent rebuild team in NCAA 25?
when I first got the game, it actually kind of happened at a pretty poor time in my life, so I didn't get to play too much. But here over the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to get the console back on and trying to get my life back together. But I created a team, and I did it before I knew you had to have PlayStation Plus. So I bought PlayStation Plus, and I made the South Central Montana University Raccoons. And so I've been playing.
Okay.
I've been playing with them. I've been doing. I've been playing every game. I'm about to start my third season. First season went really, really bad because I threw a lot of interceptions, and the team, I mean, they were a cupcake team, right? So because I want the challenge to be to build them up. And then I got a transfer quarterback last year from Rice, and that made things a little better. And now this year I've got the 5-star quarterback that I redshirted last year coming in. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's probably what I'll spend the majority of my weekend doing. So yeah, just fire up the PlayStation. But the one I did before that was I think ULM, the Warhawks, which pretty cool. I just can't get them to fucking win. It's where the game is rigged against building the little teams up. Unlike, NCAA 14 where you could build any team to be something at least.
A powerhouse. Yeah. The I've been playing. We have two. We have one that we play with like four people, and then I just have one by myself. And the one that we play with four people, I am University of Memphis, and I have actually started to develop a legitimate fandom for that team because of
I've
it.
noticed that.
Like knowing the players and
Yeah, I've
stuff is
noticed that.
pretty cool. I never went to like a college, so like I don't have like a loyalty to a school. So like I don't know, it's just fun, and they're kind of good right now, so it's just fun to ride the wave. I'll probably fall off next season, but and then in the other one, I like started at, oh, I don't even remember. I started somewhere super small, and then I got a job offer from like Northwestern, and I went there for a few years, and I loved it because it had like a education like A plus like prestige, and I was like, oh, not many schools have this.
Yeah, no, that is one that you that you don't see a lot in the game. And it's also one that you don't have any control over as like a coach in Dynasty where you can kind of take it and try and improve it. Like if you go into the coach tab and you start browsing like the ones that you have control over, that's one that it very specifically says you have no influence over this. So
Yeah. Frustrating.
I'm not sure what South Central Montana University's academic prestige is, but it's not high, I would imagine.
What how many leagues are you currently in?
I think just
What
three,
fantasy leagues?
just three this year. Like I said, just this year, some things going on in my personal life. I didn't want to overwhelm myself with too much fantasy football. I think the most I've ever been in is 6 or 7. I've been in a league with Matt for God, this probably is the 10th or 12th year of that league, but I chose to step back from that one. And I talked about that in our podcast a little bit, just because part of it was because of what I have going on. And then some of it was it's not Dynasty. And I just love the Dynasty
Yeah.
format so much. It's hard to do. And I think you and Mark said the same thing. Like, it's hard to do the redrafts. They just don't have the same charm.
Yeah. It's hard to take them as seriously, I feel like.
Yeah, right. So
Um
yeah, like I'm in the other dynasty league with you and Mark and a whole bunch of the other guys in this league, and a few other random people thrown in, and then I have one family redraft league on Sleeper. That's all I'm doing this year.
we also got our fucking family leagues to go on Sleeper, so pretty stoked about it. I love everything being in one place for me.
Yeah, my family league's on
Um
Sleeper too, and it's super nice
so okay, so we all know that you're a Cowboys fan, but why?
because I hate myself.
That's what I say about most of my teams too.
Yeah, no, until January, I could say honestly that I'd never witnessed any team that I give a shit about win anything worth mentioning. Because yeah, I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm also a Seattle Mariners fan. I was a Seattle Supersonics fan, and I'm a fan of the University of Michigan. And so until Michigan won the national championship in January, like I said, it was always, Michigan hadn't won a championship since '97, and Mariners have never won a World Series. Sonics don't exist anymore, and the Cowboys haven't won anything since '95. So it was a lot of suffering for me, but yeah, so getting to experience that win was pretty cool. But I became a Cowboys fan because I'm a millennial. I was born in '89, and I was actually a Packers fan when I was really little. My grandpa's a huge Packers fan. And so when I was like 3 or 4, was trying to get me, into the Packers, but it was like right at the beginning of Favre, I think. And I have a cousin who's a Cowboys fan, and he's shown me Emmett Smith and Michael Irvin and Troy Aikman and, all these guys. And like, I was just so taken with, especially with like Emmett Smith. I still have this card that he gave me for Christmas laying around somewhere in my house. And yeah, I was a victim of the early '90s dynasty, and I've been suffering now for 30 years. Oh, because of because of my cousin, that he still apologizes to me on the rare occasion that I see him because he lives in North Carolina. So yeah, why do I keep liking them? I I just can't help it now. And Matt's a Cowboys fan too. So yeah, him and his dad watch football together every Sunday, every Cowboys game just about we watch together, and we've been doing that since we were kids. It's become a tradition, and we're companions in misery. So, and like I know you're a Dolphins fan, and it makes total sense, like as to why you are. But
Yep.
here in Montana, we have like the closest team is Denver, so there's a whole bunch of Denver fans here. There's some Vikings fans, some Packers fans, but yeah,
I I actually, it's funny because I actually kind of think about that and like the idea of people that live in places like Montana or whatever. And, with what I do for work now, like just talking to so many people regularly, like hearing how they became fans of certain teams, like, it makes so much sense that like, oh, this is the closest team. So this is the team I am. Or my relative was a fan of this team, so that's how I became a fan. But like there's also like those rare kids that like maybe their dad didn't watch football nearly as much as like other dads, so they just kind of got into it, and then you just got to like pick a team for whatever reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of wild and kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean because like where I am in Montana, we are almost like exactly in the middle of four major areas. So Seattle is about 800 miles west of us, Denver's 600 miles south of us, Minneapolis is 900 miles east, and I think it's Calgary is about 800 miles north. So we're like right in the middle of where there's absolutely nothing. Like we're the biggest city for almost 1,000 miles in any direction.
Yeah.
So it's, we don't even have like a legitimate Division 1 college within about that same radius. Boise State is probably the closest one because there's none in North or South Dakota. There's one in Wyoming. University was their only 4-year college. And like our college football teams here are really good. Like Montana State's actually the only college football team that's undefeated right now besides Oregon. So yeah, and Montana was in the national championship last year, but yeah, like I
Is that
just
Division 2?
no, they're FCS.
Oh, gotcha.
So
Okay.
what was one AA when we were growing up, right? But yeah, and then like where I went to college doesn't even have a football team, which is Montana State University Billings. And then my first college was Division 3. So they do have a team, but yeah, I was there for a year and I do not give a shit about
Hmm.
about their football team. So yeah, it's interesting to like find your fandom when you're in a really isolated area like this. Yeah, like I ended up as a Mariners and a Sonics fan because my dad grew up in Seattle. So he was always rooting for them. And in the 90s, they were both super good. So
Yeah, I mean
yeah,
Ken Griffey, Randy Johnson, Ichiro, like prime Mariners years right there.
yeah. I mean, and you got freaking Alex Rodriguez. Like that was,
Yeah, say A-Rod, yeah.
yeah. And, for the Sonics, it was Sean Kemp and Gary Payton and Percy Hawkins and Detlef Schrempf and like all those guys. And
Kevin Durant.
yeah, towards the end, like literally their last year. And then for Michigan, the same reason I'm a Michigan fan is because my dad grew up in Seattle. So like rooting for University of Washington, their biggest rival is Washington State. And in the 97 Rose Bowl, I think it was, Michigan played Washington for the national championship, Washington State for the national championship. And so my sister and my dad were rooting for Michigan to beat Washington State. And so I was too. And I just kept rooting for them. And I've never stopped.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's how you end up with your fandoms when you don't live within 1,000 miles of hardly any.
So you mentioned a bunch of Cowboy players that you grew up liking, but like okay, I feel like I want to give you a little like pedestal to maybe who are your favorite players on your team now, and who are some players that you think people don't give enough credit to on your team?
I don't think people give Dak Prescott enough credit. Honestly, he's my favorite Cowboy. Like if if you listen, like I hate to use the term, but if you're a normie and you don't pay attention, you're just gonna think Dak Prescott is a shit quarterback and he's X, Y, and Z. But he's the only reason the Cowboys have been relevant for the last 10 years, or for the last 8, I guess. When he's
Say Tony Romo.
yeah. I'll get to him in a minute. I'll get to him in a minute. Um, and is Dak the best quarterback in the league? No, but there's only one Patrick Mahomes. But I
Yeah.
do think that he's a lot better than the majority of people are willing to give him credit for. And I can honestly say I've watched just about every single game in his career, and the majority of the time he is the solution and not the problem. He's been a victim of being part of the organization that he's part of. He had to deal with Jason Garrett for a long time, and now he's got Mike McCarthy, who's the game has passed him by. I can say I can say pretty easily on that one. So yeah, and we sat and wasted his best years. I think now he's had that ankle snapped and he's tore his hamstring off the bone. So we'll see what he's got left in him. But yeah, Dak's one of my favorites.
My only like negative to Dak is he's just kind of a like I don't know how to like say it other than like he's just kind of like a magoo. Like I don't know, he's kind of a cornball sometimes.
Oh yeah, no, I think he I feel like when you're the Cowboys quarterback, you kind of have to be that guy. You know what I mean? Like you kind of have to do all the coach speak and stuff like that. But the other thing too is if you get really, if you start to dig deep into some of the stuff that he does and he says, like he'll spit shit out and he'll give you some hotter takes, but then Cowboys fans don't like that. And Cowboys fans are the absolute fucking worst fans in the whole league. Like I would put them up there with just about anybody, and I hate being a Cowboys fan because of it. They're terrible. But yeah, Dak's one of my favorite players. I think he's one that definitely needs more respect.
Fair.
Him and Demarion Overshone, he's really starting to come into his own this year. Love that guy.
Linebacker.
Yep, number 13. He went to Texas. He was hurt last year, but this year he's just been a monster for us. And then also Diggy, he's going to be a free agent this year. He's one of our defensive tackles. He's pretty damn good too. Those are just a couple guys I think are underrated. And Parsons, I love Micah Parsons, but Overshone's definitely becoming one of my favorite players very quickly as well.
Do you have any favorite players in the league right now that aren't on your team?
Oh, that's you know, it's tough. I feel like if I wasn't on the spot, I could probably think of it. But I do like DK Metcalf. I do find myself rooting
Okay.
for him. I like Roma Dunze. Miles Garrett's a freaking monster. Also Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield. Some
Baker Mayfield.
like I've loved Baker Mayfield since he was in college, man. Like just his attitude and like the way he plays nuts out is he just he kills me. Like I think I'd go to war for that guy. And then like the last couple of years, Jameis Winston's really been winning me over. He's just freaking funny, man. Like, and we kind of talk
I
about
saw a
it on the
meme.
podcast too. Like,
I saw a meme where it was like the real MVP is whoever on Jameis's like public like PR team just told him to lean into like the character he is today kind of
right.
thing and stop trying to be so serious all the time.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
was like, yeah,
No doubt. And then of course, like anybody that went to Michigan, like Mike Sanders still one of my all-time favorite Michigan players. He was a corner for us last year, and now he plays for Washington, unfortunately, but I absolutely adore that guy. Just everything about him, the way he plays. He's a good dude. Yeah. Really,
Hutch,
really
Aiden Hutchinson.
Aiden Hutchinson for sure. Rashawn Gary, another one that I really like. Yeah, I also kind of hate that I like Jaden Daniels a little bit too, but I also have him on both my dynasty fantasy teams, so I think that
Right.
helps me with.
You're forced to root for him.
Yeah, that definitely helps a little bit. But yeah, I mean, and I like Josh Allen too. I think he's an easy guy to root for. Kind of an underdog. Went to
Right.
school, in Wyoming, and as much as I hate the state of Wyoming, you also kind of root for guys that come out of. I feel like this Mountain West region where you feel a little forgotten about.
Christian McCaffrey. The So besides like football and stuff, you mentioned books. What are some books you've been reading that you enjoy and maybe some of your favorites?
Right now, I'm reading two books. I'm reading The Sorrows of Young Werther by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, which, yeah, that sounds much more involved than it is. And then I'm also reading Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo. Those are both really good books. The Sorrows of Young Werther is as depressing as it sounds. And I just finished The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. That was an incredible book, beautifully written. What else? I read I read the uncensored oral history of punk about the early punk scene in New York City earlier this year. That was
Word?
absolutely fascinating. I've got
Not a not quite a book, but did you ever watch that like the I think it was called like the Godfathers of Hardcore or like Fathers of Hardcore like documentary that came out?
I don't know if I did.
I don't remember what it's on. I think it's free on YouTube or something as like a like one of their like actual like YouTube movies or something, but
I'm
sorry.
that would 100% be something I would watch. Yeah, that sounds freaking great. I also not long ago read a book called No Longer Human, which I actually have one of my tattoos as part of. Yeah, so that's one of my all-time favorites now. I finished that I think in like late July maybe. Some of my other all-time favorites, Slaughterhouse Five by Kurt Vonnegut. Let's see. And because I have freaking trauma brain right now, I can't remember the title of this other one. But yeah, I read like 35 books last year and I'm going to fall short of that this year, unfortunately. But yeah, it's something that as now that I'm like out of college, over the last 10 years, I've really been able to enjoy like I did when I was a teenager. And it's just helps me sleep and kind of get back into get back into myself after a day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I hope to learn to read one day too. What do you like, are you a movie guy? Are you a show guy? Do you have a
Oh hell
preference
yeah.
between
Yeah.
like what are your what like genre movie do you find yourself watching the most?
Um,
Or get the most excited about when there's like something new in that category?
there's nothing like a good drama, you know what I mean? And it doesn't
Yep.
matter if it's like an action drama or like a dramedy or what have you. Like, if you give me something like The Shawshank Redemption, I'm like 100 times out of 100 going to enjoy something like that. Or, like The Lighthouse, something weird and fucking cool. I also love horror movies. So it doesn't matter how weird they are, I'll give it a go.
Do you are you with horror and you mentioning The Lighthouse? Are you an A24 fan?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll watch just about
I love
anything,
A20.
anything they put out, man. It's yeah, even a trailer can get me going. I don't like going to the theater though, I will say that. I just I don't remember the last time I was in a theater and I'm totally okay with it. I would much rather watch it in the comfort of my own home on my couch. I know there's
I
something to be
feel
said for the theater, but yeah.
I always risk falling asleep when I go into the movie theater. I've hit full dad mode when it comes to that.
Yeah, no doubt. I fell asleep at a John Mayer concert once, so I feel like I can also probably fall asleep in a movie theater if I were to revisit one anytime soon.
John Mayer is the greatest artist of our generation.
Yeah.
That's a quote I've heard. The okay, so shows. What shows have you been watching lately, if any? And what are some that you go back to?
Yeah. So I know you're an F1 fan as well.
Yep.
I've been watching Senna on Netflix because they just released that limited series about him. Ayrton Senna was,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, I'm on, I think, the third episode. And Senna was kind of a piece of shit, and they don't really get into that, but because of course they don't. But
Right.
it's still interesting, and I have a hard time watching stuff about racing because, like, I really enjoy racing, and so I feel like I almost know too much about it, and so when it gets fictionalized, I'm like, that's not how that sounds, or that's not what that circuit looks like, and but and like with Senna, they do a lot of jumping. It's like, oh, a year later, I'm like, no, what the fuck happened in that year? I want to know what happened in that year. So I've been watching that, and then I've been watching, or a friend of mine told me about this show called Fleabag, so I watched a couple episodes of that. I watched Monsters about the Menendez brothers. That was pretty good.
Yep. I've heard about that. I haven't started it though.
It's
Are you do you have Apple TV?
I do.
Sorry. Apple TV has become one of my favorite places to watch shows. Have you watched have you watched Presumed Innocent?
I haven't. No.
It's apparently it's like a, based on a book like a lot of these are, but there was also a movie in the 90s with Harrison Ford called the same thing, but they changed it a little bit. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal in it. It's very good. I think so. And it's just like, one season self-enclosed, so worth checking out.
I might have to do that because I have it free for like 3 months since I just got my phone. So yeah, definitely something worth looking at. I think it's another show I've been watching too, but I can't for the life of me remember what the hell it is. And since I've got football on, I'm not going to open apps right now. But
Yeah.
yeah,
What
sure.
are some of your what are some of your favorite shows?
Yeah, stuff I come back to, The Office, because I'm a millennial. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's that's kind of canon for us. And then Archer. I absolutely love Archer. I'm on a rewatch of that right now. It's probably like my eighth or ninth time through. Breaking Bad's one of my favorites. Game of Thrones, they did kind of ruin it there at the end, unfortunately, but
Unfortunately.
it's still, those first what 6, 7 seasons are iconic, iconic television.
Yeah, so good. Like we're watching people just have conversations for an hour on a week basis, and like we're stoked
And
about it.
riveted. It was funny because I'm sitting here watching the Lions Packers game right now, and they made a reference to Kings in the North and how there was like they had them all on iron thrones and things like that. And I was like, what the fuck is still making Game of Thrones references? And then I was like, yeah, okay, like it was pretty iconic. Like, you know,
Also, House of Dragon is like a thing that's actually still
yeah,
pretty popular. So
yeah. I watched the first season of that and then I canceled HBO. So it's I did enjoy the first season. So yeah, but
it's some
Game of
it's
Thrones,
something I was gonna stay away from. Whatever, the new one. I just totally lost it.
House of
What
the
is it called?
Dragon.
House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
I was gonna listen to House of the Dragon or watch House of the Dragon, be only because I've been convinced enough from enough people telling me that it's actually really enjoyable. So Game of Thrones hurt me that much.
Yeah, those last couple seasons were brutal. Like I was ready to defend the last couple seasons until spoiler alert for those of you who may be watching for the first time or have not seen it and intend to watch. But when Bran becomes my God, like I don't know, I don't get mad much, but yeah, I was ready to fight somebody at that point. Like going from on the three-arch rise and to oh, he's the fucking king. Like, give me a he's the king of Westeros now after he gets drug around on a sled for 8 seasons. Give me a fucking break. All of that. That was the absolute worst thing they could have done. Among the other terrible shit they could have done. Awful. Everything about it. Hated it.
All right. So no kids, but do you have any? I know you do. Tell us about your pets, Colter.
So I have just one dog now. I had a dog for about 15 years and she passed away in April. Her name was Maddie. But
I'm very sorry.
yeah, no, she was a great dog. Loved her very much. And right now I've got Remus, who's laying here with me. He's a little terrier. He just turned 10 yesterday. And yeah, he's pretty much my best friend right now. It's just him and I in the house. And I've also got a mouse. Her name is Margie. She is the last of the 13 I have had. I used to have a couple rats as well, but they have gone to live with somebody else. Got a few fish upstairs, but they're just little goldfish. So I pretty much feed them and they swim and there's not a lot of connection there. But yeah, those are the
Fair.
animals.
How did you get into mice and rats? Like how did you end up like did you have 8 of them all at once or was it like
Yeah, so it was it was with my wife at the time. She growing up had mice and loved them, and I was like, "There's no fucking way I'm gonna have mice." It's like you're fucking crazy. And then there was a couple of them up for adoption at the animal shelter, and she was like, "Can we get them?" And I was like, "Fine, like go," but like I'm not paying for any of it. Like no way. And she went and got them, and they're just the coolest little fucking pets. And like they're so much fun to watch. They're intelligent. They're just they're entertaining. And then when we still had those two, we went to PetSmart one night, and the lady told us basically that they had, I think it was nine, and they'd been there for months. And we were like, well, we'll take all nine. So at one point we had 11 mice. And
Oh
then,
my.
yeah. And then when we were down to our last one, there was two more that popped up at the animal shelter. So we adopted them, and now I'm down to this last one. And they really don't like to be solitary creatures, but yeah, I just don't want to get another one because I can't take care of her because I'm too allergic. Uh, so yeah, now that I'm on my own, it's like I gotta let her ride it out because she's been alone for 9 months now, so she's probably pretty used to it. And as far as the rats, it was kind of the same situation. She wanted them, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's get some rats. The mice are cool, so let's get them." And the rats were awesome. Like they were completely different from the mice, but just such cool creatures, so smart. Yeah, I loved those little bastards, but yeah, I hope they're doing good. Okay. But yeah, if it sounds weird, but rodents are such great pets. Oh, don't get hamsters, get mice, get rats. I mean, if it's legal to own them where you are, because they are awesome, awesome, awesome little creatures. And most people just think of them as vermin, but they are they're wonderful little animals.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd I don't know that I'd ever own a rat, but I definitely could also see myself being one of those people that's like, you know what? They've been here how long?
Yeah,
And making it work. So,
yeah, no, it's one of those things too. Like you think of them, yeah, okay, gross. They live in dumpsters, and they're gonna invade your house, and there's something to be said for wild mice and wild rats and things like that. Like, should you domesticate one of those? No, you shouldn't. But you know, they also do breed them for pets. Like, go on Instagram, go on YouTube, and find videos of rats, mice. They're adorable, and they're like I said, completely different animals. But I just can't say enough about what wonderful pets they are. And I wish I could convince the world that they are good pets and they're not just these horrible little creatures because they absolutely are not.
they're just resourceful, you know?
Oh, they absolutely are. Yeah, and they're actually really clean animals, like meticulously clean. They might live in garbage, but God, do they hate to be dirty.
So, what I know you recently took a trip to go see a somewhat recently took a trip to see a Michigan game. Where would you rank that among your favorite trips?
Yeah, so I've seen two Michigan games in the last year. So I went to Seattle in October to see Michigan Washington, and that sucked because they lost. like Husky Stadium is super cool because it's right on the lake. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous setting, and the old University of Washington shell house is there. If you've ever read the book, oh shit, what's it called? About the rowing team that won the gold medal in the Olympics. Oh damn it, I'm blanking on it now. They made it into a movie like just recently. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I know the movie, but I don't know if I know the book.
Oh man,
So like,
Boys in the Boat. That's what it is.
yeah.
Yeah, the shell house is literally right next door to the stadium. So got to see that. That was awesome because I just finished reading that book like probably 7 or 8 months ago. And, being able to see all the yachts out on the lake from the stadium, just can't say enough about the setting. But Michigan Stadium is far superior. I got to see Michigan Ohio State last November. That was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. But yeah, Detroit, Ann Arbor, both incredible places. Absolutely adored the people of Ann Arbor or of Detroit, I should say, because like just so kind. Everything that I ever heard about Detroit was, it's this horrible place, run down, like disgusting, but it was amazing. Just absolutely the nicest, friendliest, large city I've ever been to. You know, New York was New York. DC was cool because like everything in DC was free to do, because it's like all national monuments and shit. Library of Congress is gorgeous. If you've never been, that is something to go see. And of course, like when I was there, it was during COVID, so you couldn't go to the White House, you couldn't go in the Capitol building, shit like that. But yeah, DC is one to experience, and Alaska too. Alaska's just
Where in
beautiful.
Alaska did you go?
So my sister lives in a city called Eagle River, which is technically part of Anchorage, but the
Okay.
city limits of Anchorage are bigger than the state of Rhode Island. So yeah, it Anchorage basically would be the way to put it.
Gotcha. Damn. I always wanted to go to Alaska. Do you have anything like what are some things you have left on your bucket list? What are you trying to go see?
It's changed a little bit.
Do
There's a golf course inside Indianapolis Motor Speedway I want to play. I think that would be sick because I do play golf. I guess that's something I didn't mention. I worked at golf courses for fucking 20 years. So yeah, I've always thought that would be awesome. I want to see a Formula One race. I haven't gotten to do that. I want to see a Bruce Springsteen show.
which if you could go to any of like the regularly visited circuits and see a race like whatever. It's Monaco, right?
I don't know because Monaco's such a shit race. Like
Yeah, you're right.
it's such a terrible race. But at the same time, I feel like you get to see a lot of the action. Like, if I can get VIP treatment at Monaco, yeah, I'll fucking go to Monaco. But if I'm just going as
Yeah.
like a regular spectator, I'm probably going somewhere. I'm probably going somewhere close by. Even like Circuit of the Americas or something like that would be enough for me. I'd really love to go to Spa and see that. But everything I've ever heard about like going to see an actual race at Spa, it's like one of the worst places to actually go and see a race at because it's super isolated. So I don't know. I honestly wouldn't be choosy, but Spa's just so iconic. Monza's iconic. But yeah, if I could get the VIP treatment at Monaco, go on the yachts and shit, stand up on a nice balcony or something somewhere like right, man, that would be just incredible.
So you kind of, I mean, you're talking about it a little bit now, and then you can circle back to not mentioning golf, but what's something you're like super passionate about?
Oh,
And you should at least briefly mention your records considering.
yeah. So music is something I'm definitely passionate about. I've got 4,500 records now, I think. I work a second job at a record store. I've been doing that for 4 years. And yeah, records is kind of something I felt sort of ass backwards into and just definitely became a passion of mine. And I still just really enjoy it. And it gives me something to do, it gives me an escape. And there's nothing like, even being on a vacation, when I'm out of town, I go to record stores. Like that's what I want to do. I go to Denver. I'm going to Wax Tracks, going to that whole road, that whole street there. Like there's 2 or 3 miles where there's like 4 or 5 record stores. I'm going to all of them. That's what I'm trying to do. It's just there's nothing quite like finding a new record that you don't have or that's interesting or that you've been after for years. It's like the thrill of the hunt. It's just something that brings me a lot of joy. Yeah, and then
What's a holy grail you're still searching for?
I'm pretty fortunate working at the record store that I get a lot of what I want because it either trickles in or it gets repressed and I'm able to acquire it with relative ease. There's a couple Taylor Swift records I'd really like to get, but they're stupid expensive. I'm talking several $1,000s. There, man, there is. I have like over 700 records on my want list on Discogs. Uh,
Hmm.
I'd love to have Dogs Eating Dogs by Blink 182. They pressed that one time and it was like a super limited pressing, and I wasn't quick enough to get it because I was teaching and they didn't announce a pre order or anything. There's some Springsteen bootlegs I'd like to have, a couple little hip hop records, things like that. Some just like super obscure, like UFO records that are fucking cool that I'd love to have, hip hop bootlegs, video game bootlegs. It just totally depends on the day. Like there could be one moment where I'm like, fuck, I never need those Taylor Swift records, and one day where I'm like, I might spend a couple grand on that, which I never would.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that yeah, record's definitely something I'm passionate about. Education, obviously, being a teacher, that's something that's important to me, in mental health as well. I've really tried to take that as serious as I possibly can, and I try and advocate that to my students, and taking care of them, and getting them to take care of themselves mentally, and to recognize that in themselves and others. And I just think that's a really important thing to me. So yeah, I'm trying to be more open with that, and yeah, do all the passionate stuff. So it can be hard to do sometimes. And animals, fucking love animals too. So just yeah, I guess you do all the things, right? Obviously sports. Otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. So
So, all right, way to round it out. Back to sports. Let's end this podcast with an NFL and a fantasy prediction. We're kind of late in the season for fantasy, so like I understand, but give us at least an NFL prediction.
oh man. I have been thinking lately that it's gonna be I really want the Lions to make the Super Bowl. Like I do, and I hope they do. I don't know if it's chalk to say that the Lions are going to make the Super Bowl because they look like they're going to be the number one seed right now. But I'm going to say Lions, Ravens, or Lions, Bills Super Bowl. I'll go with that.
Okay. So your hot take in that was to slide in that Kansas City isn't the AFC representative.
Sure. Yeah. And I did give the hot take that I think Minnesota gets eliminated in their first game in the podcast too, and I'll stand by that.
Yeah, you're right. You did. You enlightened me to a trend I was unaware of.
Seriously, I even went back and looked at their records, and it's 100% legitimate. Like 2020 was the case, or like I think was it 2020 was the case Keenum year. I don't remember. Maybe it's 2016, but yeah, every 4 years they have a good year, and in between they're really mediocre, and they get eliminated either in the wild card round or the divisional round, or like occasionally they'll make the conference championship. But it happens every 4 years. It is absolutely wild.
What? Who do you think is going to win the league?
Oh, for us, that's a good question. Honestly, my bet would be on you or Mark. Like you guys are both
I'll take it.
you have both awesome teams. My team has completely shit the bed this year. Like I mentioned on the podcast, last year I was scoring and I was getting scored against. This year I'm not getting scored against and I'm not scoring. So yeah, it's been really unlucky for me. But yeah, as far as our league goes, like I have a tough time picking against you or Mark. We also have defending champions laying around, or past champions laying around that are still a little frisky. So, I mean, it's still damn
Need them
open.
to lose.
Yeah. I mean, like freaking Mark's in fourth place and he scored 2,400 points. Like
Yep.
that's rough. But then again, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's crazy to me that like to sit here and look, we've got, 3 teams at 10-3 and, Mark at 9-4 with the second most points for. So, I mean, playoffs will be super interesting. I think it depends on obviously health for these last few weeks.
Health and matchups, just one of those like where do you get lucky and who, has a bad week or whatever and stumbles, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got to win this week because I mean you're playing me and I don't have a quarterback this week. I have Jameer Gibbs and Jameson Williams just combined for 26 points. So that's not going to strike too much fear into your heart, I don't think. I've tried to acquire a couple quarterbacks this week and have been rebuffed. So yeah, you want to trade me Kirk Cousins?
Probably not, because unfortunately I need him in case either of these guys go down. Tua seems to be pretty fragile. So
Yeah, I know. I was looking at your roster and I was like, that's why you won't trade him to me because he needs him as a backup.
yeah, the only issue the only rebuttal I have to Jameer Gibbs and who's it? Jameson Williams.
Yeah,
Getting 26 points is the fact that Amon Ra only got me 7.8. So
yeah, but
seemingly doesn't want to be involved.
You also have 2 quarterbacks this week.
That's true. You're right. I do have that.
Yeah, and I have 0. But yeah, I am also feeling a little bad for Matt because Matt started off the season pretty decently, and then he made some moves to compete, and his team has completely shit the bed since then. So
yeah, it all just kind of fell out from underneath him. It felt like real quick.
yes, it did. And since that's my boy, I felt like I had to kind of give him a shout out there. Yeah, I mean, it's a rough go. It's a rough go. But yeah, and I was trying to
goes,
I was trying to convince him to trade dudes to me before that, but he's like, no, no, no. Come on, man. They'll help me more than they'll help you, but didn't go that way. So, oh well.
Well, all right, dude. Is there anything else you would like to say to the league?
No, I appreciate how active the majority of you are. You guys are a fun group. Enjoy the chat that we get and the banter most of the time, even though I still don't know the majority of your names. I'm trying to learn, but yeah, to me, you're still mostly just your screen and team names. So I've learned a couple thanks to the polls and the podcast. But yeah, not having met hardly any of you except for Matt, Greg, and Mark in person, it's difficult for me. But yeah, the new stuff we've been doing this year has definitely helped, and it's definitely added to the enjoyment of the league for me personally. So shout out to Greg and Mark for doing that. And for those of you that have done write-ups before, I always enjoy those a great deal. So yeah, just everybody keep up the great work, and thanks for making it a fun 3 years for me for having been in here.
Hell yeah. Well, on that, thanks for listening, guys. Get with us and let us know if you would like to get on the podcast and kind of an idea of when you're available. We tend to record on Tuesdays, so just a heads up. But thanks everybody for listening, and talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.